Hi.
Hi, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jen.
We're paper makers.
Yes, paper makers. We teach workshops, do demos at festivals,
And at farmers markets.
and we make paper goods all by hand. Welcome.
To your virtual classroom.
Here's what you need to make recycled paper.
Blender, paper,
Whoa! Wait,
come
what?
back,
Let's do that again.
please. All right, blender, paper, sponge, towels or sheets, 8 stretcher bars, window screen, water, duct tape, staple gun, plastic container, and some boards. Let's go.
First, you need to make your mold and decal. The mold is the bottom piece, and the decal is the top piece, and they need to be the same size. Here you can see that I have stretcher bars to make up the frame the size of the paper that you want to make. The bars slot together, and we'll see that in a bit.
Bang.
Whoa, what's going on there? And the mold has a screen attached to it, so here I am attaching the screen, and the screen allows the water to pass through, but collects the pulp that forms on the paper.
Clang.
We're using aluminum window screen, which you can use
Bam.
in any hardware store. The screen doesn't have to be metal, but it needs to be fine enough that the pulp won't fall through with the water. Cut out enough screen to cover the mold, and then you start stapling it, like I've been, to the mold. Keep the screen taut so it won't sag on the mold as you use it. You can also use waterproofed picture frames, or if you know a woodworker, you can make pieces from a plank of wood. Just be sure to waterproof it. It's gonna get wet. Be generous with the staples. You want this to hold up to a lot of use. And look out, the speed is picking up here. Use the duct tape to tape down the rough edges so that you don't cut yourself.
Your paper doesn't need your blood.
It also makes it easier to clean up your mold at the end of the day. Cover both sides. Water gets everywhere. Now we can make the decal.
Deckel is German for top.
It is also the term for the edge of a piece of handmade paper.
The decal helps the pulp to form the sheet on the mold.
The bars slot together, and if they get stuck, you can use a mallet to help force them to stick together. And now you have, ta-da, a mold and decal.
It's time for a drink. Pulp time! You can use lots of different kinds of paper you may have lying around. We're going to use some gift wrap, some tissue paper, and some very, very important junk mail. What you put in is what you get out, so if using used gift wrap, watch out for pieces of tape. Newspaper, it just doesn't work. It's too processed to make a good sheet of paper on its own. It becomes a weak mass of gray goo. Your pieces of paper need about 1 inch square or smaller. Any larger and you'll destroy your blender. Now, clearly we haven't sped up this footage, but if you can try to be as fast as we are, you can, but there's no need.
And if you work in an office,
Hey, I do.
you can collect shredded paper in bulk.
Shredded is an easy-to-get source of recycled paper.
And tissue paper is a really good way to add tint to your paper.
With printed materials, you'll get flecks of the color of the ink, or, depending on how you blend it, chunks of actual text.
And you need about 2 loose handfuls of material per blender load.
This is not a hard and fast rule. Experiment. You may find you want to use less or more material. It depends on your paper and your blender.
And now we're starting to shred up some art prints. If you're an artist or you have access to an art school, this is a good source of material. Unwanted artwork.
If you made a print that you just hate,
Or maybe the color was wrong.
tear it to pieces and use it.
Give it a brand new life.
We're using donated student prints from the Pacific Northwest College of Art.
What's great about this kind of paper is that it's usually made from cotton or linen fibers, and those are strong and archival.
That means it's premium stock.
I've poured water to soften up the paper before it goes to the blender. The premium paper is a stronger paper, so soaking it weakens it up enough so that it doesn't make your blender explode.
It wouldn't really explode. It would just stop working. To the blender!
And it doesn't matter if you put the water in first or after the paper.
I like to pour the water in on the paper. It keeps stray bits from sticking to the sides of the blender.
Fill it 3/4 of the way to the top.
And make sure that you put the lid on.
Yes, do that. And we're going to blend for about 20 to 30 seconds.
We're aiming for a consistency much like a smoothie.
Or oatmeal.
Or an oatmeal smoothie.
We're pouring it into a restaurant bussing tub. You can use any kind of waterproof container. Just make sure it's deep enough to submerge your mold and decal.
This is called a vat.
And this mix is called a slurry.
Well, that's 2 blenderfuls of slurry.
Now we're going to add water.
A lot of water.
Generally, you want far more water than pulp to make an average weight of paper.
This is a 5-gallon bucket.
And now we hog the vat.
Hogging the vat is one of several unusual papermaking terms.
You are rubbing your hand on the bottom of the vat.
This motion stirs up the paper pulp to ensure an even sheet.
You need to do this every time you make a sheet of paper.
Now let's watch that in slow motion. Rubbing the bottom of the vat reduces splashback. Remember, always hog
The vat. And now we and dip. All the way down in one fluid motion. Pull it straight up
Fight the suction.
and shake.
Shake, 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 shake. Shake. Shake.
Let the surface evenly settle.
Gradually slowing down the shake as the water drains.
Then tip the corners to drain out the last of the water.
Drain.
Carefully lift the decal off the mold,
And guess what? You're going to drain some more.
and the paper will stick to the mold if you've let it drain enough.
Now rinse off the decal in the vat to make cleanup a breeze.
And now we need to get the paper off the mold.
We had a board prepared ahead of time with a stack of towels and a piece of bed sheet on top.
This cushion will make it easier to get the paper off of the mold and onto the sheet.
Straighten out and smooth the sheet you can use a spray bottle of water.
It doesn't have to be soaked. Damp is fine.
Now line up your mold.
In a gentle fluid motion,
Not too fast, not too slow.
lower it down on the sheet.
Cooch.
Not couch. Cooch.
It's another papermaking term.
Press on the sides of the mold and use a sponge to remove excess water.
You can wring the sponge out back into the vat. Save water.
Make sure you press up and down, not side to side with the sponge.
You'll probably want to sponge 2 to 3 times on the screen.
Press on the mold one more time and lift one edge of the mold up and give it a little shake.
This should release the sheet of paper from the mold.
And hey, you've made a piece of paper.
If you want to make more, cover up the paper with another sheet and smooth it out.
Put another sheet down and you're ready to make more paper.
You made paper.
Hooray!
Hooray!
So, what happens when you make a mistake?
Now, don't do what I'm doing in this.
Yes. This is what happens when you shake too much.
Take the shaking down a notch.
As the paper starts to settle on the mold, you want to stop shaking.
If you mess up, it's not a big deal. Flip the mold over and slap it on the water. This is called kissing off.
Kiss it off and start again. Sometimes when you're working, you don't pay attention, and you make a great sheet of paper, but
Look out, wrong setup.
when it's on the wrong side of the mold, you won't be able to cooch the paper off the mold.
No big deal. Just kiss it off and start again.
Looking good.
A little on the thin and uneven side.
Again, you can kiss it off, start again.
Kiss on, kiss off.
There's no kiss on.
Cooch on?
No. There's only kiss off and cooch off.
Oh.
So that one wasn't submerged enough.
I know, kiss off. Start again.
Ah, yes, that's better.
I'm actually not this bad at pulling sheets.
That's another papermaking term, pulling sheets.
That's where I'm a Viking.
Onward to a well-pulled sheet. Looking good. Oh no!
My paper.
Well, you know, time to kiss off.
Collect the pulp.
And start again.
I didn't drain long enough.
So now we know what not to do.
Don't do what Donnie don't does.
So moving on.
Adding inclusions.
What is an inclusion?
The blue containers contain lavender flowers, rose petals, and silver ribbons. The fourth container doesn't actually exist.
You can use plants and flowers and any mostly flat materials to give your paper color and texture. So you hog the vat, you remember, and you pull the sheet of paper and shaked, and you're now adding the inclusion of your choice.
If you want to make multiple pieces with inclusions, you can just add the material to the vat.
I'm gently pressing the lavender into the pulp.
Drain off the excess water.
Lift up the decal, and if you have a shop vac handy, you can
Speed up the drying with a wet dry vacuum.
bet you're glad we stapled and duct taped the screen onto the mold.
It only takes a few passes with the nozzle of the vacuum.
Now the sheet is dry enough to pull off of the mold.
You should still let it dry further, but this will definitely speed things up.
Now let's try out some embedding.
Embedding designs. First, make a base sheet of paper. Remember to hog the vat.
Hog it.
And dip, lift, and shake. And shake. And shake. Shake, shake. Shake. And you guessed it, shake. Then drain. Remove the decal. Drain a little bit more. And cooch.
Not couch.
Cooch. Now, for here, we're using yarn to embed a pattern in the paper. You can use any mostly flat material to create a design of your choosing. We're going to make a different color pulp for our top sheet to complete the embedded design. I'm reusing some of the already made pulp slurry instead of plain water in the blender for the new pulp, so we don't have too much water in the vat.
New pulp color.
Too much water in the vat makes the vat overflow. I'm adding orange tissue paper to the blender. This will make the sheet a pale orange color. The finished dry sheet of paper will be much lighter than the color of the slurry. Jamba.
Jamba! Don't forget to hog the vat.
And I'm hogging the vat. See, I know what I'm doing. And hog the vat again. Dip, lift, and shake. Drain. And pop the decal off. Now line up your top sheet with the base sheet. This can be tricky, so don't be afraid to practice. The sheets will fuse together as they dry. Now, sponge, sponge, sponge. Sponge, sponge. Now the yarn is embedded between the two sheets.
And it's ready for restraint drying on a window or board. We're going to use a window. Carefully carry the piece to the window. Gently press the back of the sheet to get the paper to adhere to the window. And then use a brush. It could be any kind of brush. This is a shoe brush. To get the paper to stick to the window. Then gently peel. Use your finger to get the top to stick to the window. See that where it's sticking? I'm just going to use my finger. Make sure it sticks. And then voila, it sticks to the window.
Now, do we ever have to worry about it falling off the window?
We do not. It stays attached to the window while it dries. Just make sure it's really stuck down there. That's why I'm getting all the edges pressed with my finger.
Shaped papers.
Don't these look tasty?
I don't think they'll taste very good. So, shaped papers. First, you need some slurry. And you want to rest your mold on the edge of your vat. Here we're using cookie cutters as our decal. Get a big heaping spoonful of slurry and pour it into the cookie cutter. You want to add enough pulp to cover the screen. Sometimes to get into the tight spaces, you might want to use a smaller spoon. You can also use a small syringe.
Hey Gary, let's speed this up a little.
I'm just a little slow today. You can find interesting cookie cutter shapes at resale shops and at garage sales. Once the water's drained, you can remove the cookie cutters. And let's get all this stuff out of the way. Normally you would just move to your cooching station, but our camera is stationary, and we want you to see this, so I'm just going to move everything into the field of vision. And cooch. And sponge.
And woo! Shaped paper!
Ta-da! Now we're going to hang these out to dry. If it's not too windy, or raining, or snowing, you can do this outside. Be sure to clip all the sides. This keeps your paper in place. Laminating.
What does laminating mean? It means we will make different colors and or shapes of paper and combine them together while they are wet. First you make a base sheet, like I'm doing here. Shake. Let all the water drain out in the middle. Once the surface looks nice and even, you can tilt and drain. Lift up the decal, drain a little more, and cooch. Sponge, sponge, and guess what? Sponge. You can over sponge, so just 1 or 2 passes is usually enough. Now that I have my base sheet, I'm going to make a different color with this knitting hoop. This will be a nice round paper, and it's going to be a little thin because I don't have a decal. Place onto your base sheet, gently sponge, and now the 2 papers are one. I'm using the sponge to minimize the embossing created by the knitting hoop so that I can get the paper more even and flat. Now I'm going to add some tissue paper to my design. Tissue paper is nice and thin, and it's going to absorb the water and stick to the paper that you've just made without any glue. Gently press the paper down and create a design. And remember, you don't have to stay within the edges of the paper on the bottom. You can have it extend over the side. And now you've laminated.
The human press.
If you don't have a hydraulic press, you can use yourself. Place a board on top of your covered up papers and carefully stand on the post of paper.
Post is another paper making term. Tappa, tap, tap, tappa.
I am a tap dancer, so these aren't tap moves per se. Once you have done your dance all over your paper, pick up the post, and much of the water will be removed, making the paper stronger. Now you can reveal it and dry with an iron. I've got the iron on the cotton setting, so it is pretty warm. And I'm just going to move it back and forth all over the surface of the paper. The reason I have a sheet on top is to keep the paper from pilling as I iron it. You can try ironing it directly. By it, I mean the paper. But if you do start getting pilling, just cover it up with a sheet. It takes a while to remove all of the water from the paper. You want to flip it over several times, and we've got it a little more dry now, so we're going to let it continue to dry on its own.
Cleaning up. An easy way to clean up and save your pulp is by using a paint strainer bag. You can get these at any local hardware store. Put the bag in a 5-gallon bucket, and if you can do so carefully, drain the vat into the bucket. If the vat is too heavy, you can always bail it out with a smaller container. Once the vat's been emptied in, you can lift the bag and squeeze out the excess water. So what do you do with leftover pulp? You can store it in a refrigerator for a few months, or you can actually let it dry out. You can reuse it later, just get it wet. Once you squeeze out all the water in the pulp, it's actually not a whole lot there. Another thing you can do with leftover pulp is make seed bombs.
We've got a really cool shape here that is an ice cube tray to make heart seed bombs. I'm pressing the pulp into the form, making sure that it's all the way down in there, and filling it in. You want to make sure it's pretty compactly pressed in there. You could also just roll up the shapes into a circle. And now I've got wildflower seeds that I am pressing into the pulp. If there's too much water in your seed bombs, the seeds will start to sprout. So you want to make sure you get a lot of the water out, unless you want the seeds to start sprouting right away. And voila! Seed bombs! Plant under a thin layer of soil, keep moist, and then watch them grow.
Finished papers!
Woohoo! First up is our shredded office paper that was iron dried.
It's a little wavy, but it's still good.
If you want it to be flatter, put the paper under a heavy stack of books.
Here's the vacuum dried inclusion sheet. Love that texture.
Then we have the laminated sheet with tissue paper design. Are you seeing stars?
That's why it's so magical.
And this is the art print paper that was hung to dry. It's a little thicker than the shredded office paper piece.
And here's a bear. And a heart. As you recall, these were hung out to dry.
Aw, they're friends.
And lastly, it's time to peel.
Start with one edge and use your finger to gently pull the paper away from the glass or board. It will slide right off, and the side that was stuck to the window will be very smooth.
This is the embedded yarn piece.
And the end!
The end.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Earthquake.
Oh no! Earthquake's on.
Bye.
Bye.